Hello, Tom Koepp from Lake Pewaukee Sanitary District, and I brought with me Dakota Koepp, who is running the lake management on the lake and kind of really taking everything over. We've lived on the lake our whole life, I think 6 years old. I'm 60 now. Dakota was born on the lake and literally was on the lake in the first days of his life. The wife didn't like that, but he's been in the water and dealing with water and in ditches since he was a little kid pushing a little choo-choo train down the ditch, you know, where you're supposed to stay out of. You couldn't keep him out of there. So Dakota went UW Stevens Point for hydrology and water management. So he fit right in and we're rolling along, and he helps a lot on a lot of projects that we have.
Now I'm just a good old water nerd.
So remind me at the end to talk about some of the good stuff we're doing on the lake, because as I thought way back to the first time I came up here, I talked about a lot of stream stabilization and the stuff we were doing on the lake and how much we cared about the lake and tested it. How many people were here downstream of us and how much they appreciated that. So this is kind of more a negative presentation about all the challenges that we have with, you know, wake boats, day-to-day lake users. But there is good stuff with the water quality, and then Dakota mentioned on the importance. So I'm going to get right into it here.
Yeah, everything in this lake goes downstream to all of you guys, so you know, take great pride in trying to keep it as clean and nice and usable as possible. And we've come a long way from what it used to be in the 60s, 70s, 80s. We've come a long way.
Yeah. I don't know. Just click on here. Okay, gotcha. Okay, this is actually a short little video, and it was actually me and the wife in the pontoon boat, and we're in the middle of the small end of the lake. Pewaukee's got a small end and a big end. I'll call it the east and the west end. West end gets down to 45 feet. This east end only gets about, it's a mean of 5 feet deep, but a lot of the activity that happens, it's probably 7 feet deep. I'm gonna try and click back. So that's me kind of talking to the wife. I said, this is a small lake. I'm like, I don't know if that's really affecting anything. And she came back and said, well, it is a smaller boat and they're not making a big wave. But with this whole presentation, I'm a firm believer of slides and photos of something I am actually witnessing and what I've seen on the lake, not something I'm getting from any other body or any other person. Okay. Let's go. This is another photo. It's actually off of lake access. It's looking across the lake. It's probably 7 or 8 foot deep there. It's a wake boat, and he's got about, I think if you count, there's 12 people tubing behind there. So again, I was looking at it and going, okay, you know, it's pushing down, you know, it's kicking up weeds. We have that with all boats, prop chop and whatnot. And then I was looking at the size of the waves and trying to see, is there any sediment or any dirty water coming up?
Part of that is the argument in Pewaukee is that maybe you don't need regulation because the wake boats stay on the deep side of the lake anyway. So these videos were just kind of proof that no, they don't always stay in the deep water. Maybe it is better for bigger wave generation, but not everybody's educated enough to know that. So we still do get a ton of wake boats on the shallow side, churning up weeds, churning up mud, stuff like that. So
this is Taylor's Bay, which is a sensitive area, DNR sensitive area, and Sewer Pack has helped me with some maps, and it shows it's a sensitive area on the map. The buoy you see there is a slow no wake. It's 200 feet from shore, but we used to put buoys all the way across this and have slow no wake on it. It used to be so bad with milfoil that you couldn't even go in it anyway. Now there's a lot of Cara on the bottom and some pondweed, and it's really not heavily vegetated up where you'd be chopping weeds. but it is shallow. It's only 4 feet deep where these 2 skiers are skiing. So, you know, there's a huge education thing. There's no ordinance against what they're doing right now, but people need to know how they're affecting the lake. Kind of the whole point of this slideshow is we're talking about the different uses of the lake. And it's my personal opinion that everything we're doing on the lake as humans in recreation has a negative effect on it. Like, not everything if you're in a kayak, but you could be in a kayak going up the creek and you kicked up some birds that were nesting. You know, it's all in different levels, but everything we do as humans in recreation affects the ecology of the lake, and we just all need to know what are we doing and what effect is it having on the ecology of the lake. Just double check and I hit those points, and I think so. This is the only slide I cheated on. These are just slides off the internet, but LPSD, Lake Pewaukee Sanitary District, actually has a hunting blind that we allow duck hunters to go to and use during the waterfowl season. They do go in there, and the blind is a built structure that's in there, and you can get to it and park in an area that you can get to it where you're not doing this kind of activity. But we do have a creek that goes up that is really, it's probably 6 inches deep today, and it used to be able to go up and around. There was a couple of islands, but as the sediment comes in, it's filled in. So duck hunters with these type motors could actually get in there and make a mess like that. So it's these people that just need to understand what they're doing. And we've gotten those duck bans that are for aquatic invasive species and handed them out and tried to explain it to people what they're doing and try not to spread the invasives and whatnot. But another example of sediment and phosphorus getting into the water column. This slide is, Dakota came up with this, the Pewaukee Lake skiweed team. Is anyone here from the Pewaukee Lake? It's okay, nothing real negative. All I'm gonna say is it's a wonderful event. There's a bunch of people that go down to the village and watch the ski team do their thing. They're very, very qualified, good people doing the show, and it's well attended. But you can look at the boats, and there's 200s or 300s on the back of the boats. And unfortunately, where this activity takes place is in about 4 feet of water, maybe 5 feet of water. To try and lift that many skiers and go, you know, you're going to stir up the bottom, you're going to chop up weeds. Dakota says ski weed team, because if we got an east wind and that in the village hasn't cut yet, maybe it's early in the season, all those floaters come to us and then we have to clean those up. But again, it's something that's recreational that everybody enjoys and loves to see, but it does have an environmental effect on the lake and, you know, water.
And the whole Fox River, because they do it right next to the dam, so it's all coming downstream from there. But that's just another example of, you know, it's not a bad thing. We all want to see it. There shouldn't be any regulation on that. But it also is having an impact. Is it more or less than wake boats? It's probably less than wake boats, but that's just a point to bring up.
And that's where, when we get into talking a little more about wake boats, the trouble I have is when we talk to folks about this kind of stuff, I'm comparing, okay, if you got a wake boat that's in 20 feet of water, and we got some slides that'll mention that, and they're kicking up sediment on the bottom, is it that different than the ski team in 5 feet of water and kicking that sediment up? And then, as many may know, years ago, we stopped in 1980. They used to put the 2,4-D and other chemicals in the lake to try to kill the milfoil. Well, where does that go? It goes to the bottom of the lake. And my thought is, okay, if they've been doing this skiing downtown in the village, is that all gone now and down the river? And you hate to say that, but it's got to go somewhere. Again, on prop chop. So this is actually my house on the lake, and my daughter, when you're out cleaning up your shoreline, or the water skiers are out, the fishermen are out, there's nobody left behind. Anybody with a boat with a motor that's going through weeds is chopping up weeds that we call prop chop. That prop chop floats into the shores. We ask people to make piles for the weeds, and then Lake Pewaukee Sanitary District comes in and they pick up the weeds. We actually have a program. We pick up the aquatic vegetation. We get it off the lake. We take it to a site that I call the aquatic management site, where we actually stockpile all these plants on an asphalt pavement that has a drainage area to a pond that has native vegetation area for sediment, and get the nutrients out of it before it goes to a spillway, which it never even gets up to. It infiltrates in the ground, and that's in the same watershed, and eventually the creek gets back to Pewaukee Lake. We take the soil and we'll give it to that farm, Bryn Farm out there, and they'll put it on their soil and use it as fertilizer. Did I skip one? Go back one. Oop, no, good. Okay, no. Oh boy.
That's right.
Oh, it is that, okay. This is another example of east wind. It's actually my mom's cottage, and it was the day before the 4th of July. And I know we went in there and cleaned up shorelines, but you get an east wind and all those weeds come in. It was the day before the 4th of July. My sister was going, they were going to take the pontoon boat out, and called me and gave me an earful. And I'm like, I can't even keep my own mom's, shoreline clean. Now, the problem with that is the neighbor, I can't just go in there and treat your own family better than anybody else, or the neighbors around will say, sure, you're over at your mom's house again. And you just can't win. It's a challenge. So there it is on the 4th of July. And that's all prop chop. Oh, there's the guy on the shoreline. This is October, about October 30th, and we still do this. We're picking up any kind of floaters or anything out there. He's screaming at me saying, I've been on this lake for 30 years. You cut those weeds. I know when the weeds have been cut. Like, we haven't had a harvester in the water for 3 weeks. We didn't cut any of these weeds. This was years ago, and truthfully, that's milfoil there. And it's a fall day, and sometimes in fall that wind can really get rocking, and it blows through the weeds and rips them out by the roots, and they end up on shore. And now a couple of homeowners got together and they made piles, and we actually ended up coming down there with a dump truck and a trailer and loading those all up and getting them out of there. So just another example of getting the vegetation out of the lake, getting it to the management site. It's not laying in the lake, going to the bottom, decomposing, using up oxygen, adding more sediment to the bottom, more phosphorus and nutrients into the water column. So we're really focused on, if anybody makes a pile, we'll get it out of there. And I think we've even gone into November, but that's getting brutal out there. So.
And yeah, so kind of tying back into that other picture, one of the big struggles we deal with on Pewaukee Lake, and I'm sure every sanitary district deals with it, is what is the proper way to control it? Do you do chemical treatment, or is aquatic harvesting better? And he had hit a couple points with the aquatic harvesting where you're actually physically pulling the nutrients out of the lake and getting them away from the lake. Those plants can't fall down to the bottom, break down, where then you get low oxygen levels. And so then the other side of that debate would be the chemicals. Do you use that or not? The district used to use chemicals, and they used it for years until the 70s was the last time they stopped using chemicals. And that'll kill everything. And now there's obviously more advanced type of stuff you can use, but with chemicals, you're killing it all and it's falling down to the bottom. So the district has been wrestling with this for a long time. Now we only do mechanical removal or harvesting of the plants, and that has worked really well for us. That last picture was probably 10 or 15 years ago now. Unfortunately, we don't really have much milfoil at all left in the lake. We're down to about 10% milfoil, and haven't seen piles like that on the beach for probably 10 years. So it has been working, and we'll touch on that again in some of these other slides on how that's working. But then again, you get that guy coming down on the beach and the homeowner, they all know which way works the best, and they all want to go back to chemicals. And so it's something we have to wrestle with.
we've had a couple people say that we should pave the small lake, the bottom. So some of
Not a
the,
joke, it's kind of stuff you get, it's crazy.
so yeah, just touching back, for years, we did do the chemical treatment. It was before my time. I came in kind of non-biased, going, okay, what works, and wanted to do a test area down in the village. And we're kind of fortunate. We really got into late season harvesting. And I think that really helped. You knock down the milfoil as low as you can. Harvesters go 5 or 6 feet down, and you do it in the areas that I'm going to say just outside Cocoa Creek, where a lot of flow comes in, and knocking that down. The Vallisneria, eelgrass, water celery comes up. A native comes back up instead of the milfoil coming back. I think that helped us a lot. But the zebra mussels ironically helped us a lot. It was a nightmare when they were coming in, but they actually ate themselves out of house and home. And because we didn't have a lot of rocks, we had a lot of sediment. I mean, the lake's a flooded swamp, really, in a river. But because they ate themselves out of house and home, I noticed all the baby zebra mussels on the stalks of the milfoil. And then when the season you got into it further, the stalks started bending over because of the weight of the zebra mussels, and actually the natives started popping up. So as bad as the zebra mussels were a big problem that I was worried about, they actually helped us with the milfoil problem.
Yeah, so this slide just kind of highlights what we do on the day-to-day kind of management side of things. So we operate 4 harvesters, 4 transporters, and 3 shore barges. The harvesters cut the weeds, the transporters unload them and bring them back to the shore conveyor and dump truck. And then the shore barges, they're homemade barges, and they go in between the docks and pick up the piles and pick up the weeds. Where then again, it's harvested to an off-lake site where it's then composted down. So for example, last year we moved 6,600 cubic yards, which is roughly 2.7 million pounds of weeds, but it's 85% water weight. But even so, if you do a little bit of the math, and we used some DNR numbers, and we have some old tests we did, it came out to 819 pounds of phosphorus itself removes, and that's just that 1 year. So if you can do that year after year after year after year, you slowly can kind of reverse the effects, or at least slow down the effects of eutrophication and phosphorus and stuff. And fortunately, we haven't had any big algae blooms in the last several years that are concerning at all. So slowly working.
We do a lot of, we're out there all the time. Dakota's out there all summer looking, when you're on top of one of these machines, you really got a nice look at the lake and can see everything that's going on. But we're also big ice fishermen, and I put cameras down and looked at, okay, what's staying alive through the season here? Where is it gonna come back? You're actually out there on Pewaukee. I used to go to the milfoil lines and find, a good line to put my tip ups on and catch fish on. Well, now we have so much of the Vallisneria, which causes, it's a good native plant, but in fall, as any lake managers know, it gets a lot of oxygen on the plant itself, and then it becomes buoyant and uproots itself, and then it drops its seeds and plants as it goes. So when you go out ice fishing now, you're actually going out trying to find weeds to fish in, because you find the weeds, you're going to find the fish. So, I traded this wind blowing milfoil piles and the milfoil on the lake to Vallisneria in September, October. It floats up and blows in the shore, and we have major lake cleanup to clean up all that Vallisneria. And as some people know, if we're going into October, you lose all your college help. So you got September, October, struggling to find people to help you clean up the lake. You're gonna touch on that eutrophic later, okay. Just another picture of the lake. This is a short video Dakota had took off the pier, but just looking at this, I don't know if you guys can see the color of the darker, and then it gets bluer as you get farther out, but so the point of the slide is natural wave action and Mother Nature. In the area where that's darker, it's 12 feet deep. In closer, shallower, it's 4 or 5, but as you get out towards that line, it gets to like 12 feet deep, and then the waves aren't affecting it so much. But just kind of wanted to, it was a good slide to just show you what Mother Nature can do, and I do have one more in here. Another short video. This is actually a pump that I'm trying to put back out because the waves pushed it in. It's actually to operate a walleye fishery hatchery, and the pump needs to be out in the better water, and it got pushed in by the wind. But it's another good video of Mother Nature and the size of the waves.
So a little bit of the point of this is just to show that, you know, as the district, we're kind of getting tugged at by the wake motors and tugged at by the people for the environment. And it just shows the struggle, because if you try to create a regulation, or someone, a homeowner, you know, let's say their multi-million-dollar house, and a good lawyer is gonna show you a video like this and go, well, what are you doing about this? You know, that's, you know, stirring up the phosphorus and lake sediment. But then the other side of the argument is, well, those waves only mix to, like you were saying, I don't know, 12 feet deep. Obviously, the water mixes deeper, but that real rough turning action is pretty shallow water. Well, wake boats can, their prop thrust can go down up to 20 feet. So that's probably exacerbating the effects. So just showing the kind of battles we have to fight as a local municipality when trying to create regulations or education or guidance, so.
This is a map that's in our 2018 lake management plan, and you can see with sewer pack and the lake patrol, we have a recommended high intensity boating area. So this is back in 2018, and really the wake boats weren't quite getting there like they are today. And this map shows it really going into when I talked about the two ends of the lake, that's the east end, this is the west end. The hatched area is 10 feet or greater. And that's where you'd like to see, you know, most of the skiing and the bigger motor operation. So we were looking at this way back then. You also see the buoys going around the lake. I had trouble with Lake Patrol and trying to get them to put all the buoys in, because all of a sudden the buoys were less and less and less, because they were didn't want to, hope there's no one here from there. They were getting lazy. It's a pain putting them in, and it's a pain taking them out. They're dirty and wet, but it keeps people away from the shoreline, keeps the skiers away. And then we also put rock buoys in there. This is a map that I worked with Justin and Tom on sewer pack. It's the 2025 map, and we're showing 30-foot depth. It's kind of, I went through, this is like version 9, because I'm working with the Lake Patrol and someone from the village, one of the trustees, trying to create a map that's not saying the wrong thing, that somebody's going to be offended or say I'm leaning one way or the other. And the problem I have, we run Lake Pewaukee Sanitary District, but I have commissioners. And I got one commissioner saying, stay out of it. It's not your to dive into. I got another commissioner that says, look, we're stewards of the lake. We need to be in this. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I don't want to get fired, but I need to address this. So really, that's kind of the lake management issues that we face. So this is really directed at, it says recommended operating area for wake sports. So it's trying to say an educational thing, recommended area where you're not churning up the bottom, you're not causing as many problems to the people that like to enjoy the lake. You know, it's just very obvious common sense that if these things face downward and push up the sediment and stuff to be in deeper water, what elevation is that? That's a whole nother thing. I'm hoping that the state gets involved or our legislation gets involved. I've had conversations with Cindy Duco, our state representative. I'm not going to go into details because someone will be mad at me. But We're trying to do what we can. We care very much about Pewaukee Lake. We care about the watershed. We care about the rivers coming in, the rivers going out. We got stream bait projects going on with volunteers and the Meadowbrook Creek coming in, which could be a whole nother presentation. We're talking about an Earth Day project down the Pewaukee River going out this spring, which is river restoration, using coir logs, native plants, and trying to protect that stream going out of the lake. And this map does show the designated sensitive areas that we wish people would look at and not drive through with wake boats or even water skiing. Here's just a good slide of a wake boat in action. I didn't even have it in here until about a week ago. I texted my nephew and said, hey, you've been wakeboarding. You got any videos of you wakeboarding? I didn't tell him what I was using it for. But there you can get a wave height. And if I went back, let's see. Back to here, they're actually doing it right out here. So I mean, they're in the right area and they're doing it out there. I want to slowly talk to them more. How often did you go to that area? The more people I talk to that do the wakeboarding say that they like doing it in the deeper water and whatnot. So what we're doing is we're watching, we're monitoring, we're videotaping, we're getting information. I have every ordinance, I think, that anyone in Wisconsin has created against it in a digital file. I'm meeting with attorneys, trying to do the right thing. We've gone so far with the lake, and Dakota's going to talk on some of that stuff in a minute here, that I don't want to go backwards. Here's a picture. We're all fishermen. My brother's a fisherman. Here's a slide of him going out and on his fish locator, he's in 18.8 feet of water. And we got these big divots in the lake bed there. Those are probably 10 feet wide and 20 feet long. And they're in 18 feet of water. You're not going to do that with an anchor, dropping an anchor and whatnot. And we've been fishing and doing this our whole lives. So those just started showing up, and, you know, I went into going, okay, let's say it's 20 foot deep. There's no vegetation growing there. There's no fish spawning beds. What are we doing? Well, we're kicking up the sediment. We're kicking phosphorus, nutrients into the water column. But 2 weeks later, they're filling back in. So what are we really doing? How bad is it for the lake? You talked about phosphorus. What's your opinion?
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff circling that, what's the effect of it in deep water? Does it really matter? It's out in deep water. Well, it does matter, because honestly, in deeper water, especially in diamictic lakes or lakes that mix twice a year, deeper lakes that have a thermocline, phosphorus, especially in the form that plants and algae can use, really can kind of build up in those lower levels, because that phosphorus is more easily released from sediment when the iron and other ions in the soil are reduced, and then that can kind of float up and down in that water column, but won't come up past the thermocline because they're not mixing. If you get wake boats, they're mixing down into the thermocline and stirring it around. Now that soluble reactive phosphorus can come up into the zone with sunlight where algae can then use it, and that can potentially, if you have enough of them going around, poses a concern for a severe algae bloom. So that's another thing, we're recommending them to go into deep water. Well, what are the effects of them in deep water? That's still something to be studied. I know Minnesota was doing all these studies about how deep that prop wash goes, but that's another concern that you have to think about. In anoxic or low oxygen conditions, that's when the phosphorus is most easily released. So even if they're in 5 feet of water and stirring it up, is there really that much phosphorus, being released, or is it kind of just settling back down with the sediments that it's bound to? Obviously, some of it's being released, but it's just another thing to think about there. So it is a concern in deep water still.
You want to go through these?
Yeah, I can go through this slide again. The graph on the left here is actually from Sewer Pack and our 2020 lake management plan, just showing the progress of our lake. So as you can see, over time, Pewaukee used to be eutrophic, And now we actually have worked our way down into the happy medium of mesotrophic, working our way almost to ligotrophic. That would be too far, but we're kind of right in the happy medium. So the water quality, the second depth on the second one there shows that we're steadily getting clearer and clearer water over the past decades. And then same with total phosphorus, it's a little bit more of a flat line, but it's still coming down. So we're trending in the right direction. And then this is from our data. So from like 1996-ish up to 2024, you can see water clarity in the east and west basins, they're steadily increasing. So we're on the right path. We don't want to reverse it, which is why these struggles that we're dealing with are so important.
I'm not sure what you can read from the distance there, but this is 1995, 2000, 2005, 2010, 2015, 2020, 2025. And you can see we're going in the right direction in both basins. And then this is weekly Safety Disc. The red is the small lake, East Shallow Basin. This is about 7 feet. Here's 8 feet right here. Well, it's only 8 feet deep. So you're seeing all the way to the bottom and 8 feet deep. And then in the big lake or the West Basin, you're getting up to 18 feet of clarity, looking down and looking at the Safety Disc. So it's a very, very positive trend. I go back to saying how many years I've been on the lake. I used to be at my parents' cottage and I'd put on the goggles and I'd go look at the bottom because I was so interested in what's on the bottom of the lake, but I'd have to get 12 inches off the bottom to see the bottom, for 15 years. And to see this is just incredible. And to see the whole eutrophic, the mesotrophic is just phenomenal.
Yeah, and so this is of 2023, and 2023 was a really clear year. I think because we didn't have much rain, so we didn't have a lot of the nutrients coming in. So all the plants, this was in the clearest days were in June, and we had 22, 30, and 25 feet of clarity for 3 weeks there, and that's just when the plants were really sucking up the nutrients. But it just shows you how clear the water can get. And this is with declining zebra mussels. So we've had steadily declining zebra mussel populations too. So it is showing a reduction in nutrients.
I think I have a quick question about clarity. If the water's clear, don't you get more weed growth because light can get further down?
Yeah, you would get deeper weed growth, but also it depends a lot on the nutrients that are available. I mean, you could have flights of 60 feet, but if there's no nutrients down there that they can use, they might not grow, or they'll grow but not grow excessively. So we're getting more broader weed growth, but not an excessive amount of weed growth, if that makes sense. So
and your point taken very well, and I noticed it because I used to talk about fishing the milfoil weed lines. That was 12 feet deep. You get past 12 feet and the weeds really didn't grow anymore. Now we're seeing weeds in 18 feet of water. So they do grow. The sunlight gets deeper and things happen like this year, weird year. We didn't have the snow on the ice. The plants, I believe, were still growing. We had an open area that stayed heavily vegetated. The best weeds to fish in the lake this year were in an area that never froze. It's just strange, but I think it's the oxygen. I think it was the heat, of the shallower water and kind of the rotation and whatnot. But we can talk about it even more after the.
A perfect example of water clarity doesn't always make a difference would be like a clear mountain lake. If you picture a clear mountain lake, you can see 30, 40 feet down, but there might not be a single weed growing in the whole lake. That's just because of the nutrient balance there. So
would that be an example like Lake Superior, because that's nothing in the weeds?
Yeah, Lake Superior would be a pretty good example of, you have to factor in all the quagga mussels that they were talking about and stuff too, but generally, yeah, Lake Superior is pretty lithotrophic, so you don't get a lot of growth.
I already started this on you, but this is Dakota. He's supposed to be out cutting weeds or doing something. He's out looking for fish when he gets off of work. There's a nice smallmouth, but the clarity of the water, what were the depths you were at here, and maybe talk about that.
Yeah, I just videoed from 10 to 25 feet there. I just videoed it because a lot of friends and relatives and stuff won't believe me if I said I was looking 20 feet down in the lake and finding old boats and pallets and whatever cool stuff is down there. You've never been able to see that deep in the lake before, and now we're regularly able to do it. It's also good for presentations and stuff, so. Let's click the next one.
Good. This might be tricky.
That space is by a second.
Yeah, it doesn't want to go to that. Looks, because we got two and, oh, here we go.
Yeah, so the second one's just a bit of a fish crib in 18 feet of water. You can see it pretty much clear as day, something that you couldn't do 10 years ago at any point in the year.
So we got about 14 of them out in the lake now. The idea was we had this fish hatchery. We got the fry, release the fry go down into deep water, and they need a place to try to survive without being eaten right away. And so we got 14 fish cribs. Those are 8 by 8 structure with logs and then packed full of pine trees, Christmas trees. There's like 25 in each one packed in there, and then you put something on top and you sink them. We purposely put them in an area that you're not going to jump off a pontoon boat, off a double decker and dive and break your neck, but you're also not going to troll on the edge and catch have musky guys end up being in their way. Okay, two quick ones here. One's just a photo. So like I said, I wanted to keep, what do I personally experience on the lake with the wake boats and lake use? Here's me out on my pontoon boat. We jump off the top deck. We sit and relax in the floaties. This is out in the big lake because you want it deep when you go out and do these kind of activities. That's me at age 59. I got to keep doing this every year. It's just a thing I like to do. But can you imagine trying to do that with some of the boats that are going by and trying to stand on top? So that's how we enjoy. I like to enjoy the lake, and that's in the big lake there. Let's keep going. This is me fishing. So I have a 17.5 foot low. Look at how much clearance there is to the water before it's coming off the back. Now, even my little dog's in the back, so you can't see where it dips down and goes over, but I literally got 3 inches before water comes in. Can you imagine going out there fishing in your favorite spot? So it's not me really complaining about them. You know, the waters are forever free. Everybody gets to enjoy their hobby. So I can't go do this in that spot. It's just, you know, we got to work with each other, but I like to relax in a comfortable chair and let the dogs sit there and enjoy it. I guess I'll just quick hit on this. Pewaukee River Partnership's another group I work with where we're working on the river that goes down to, actually comes all the way down to the whole Fox here. We have groups we work with down at Delafield's got density requirements, harvesting, and they support our harvesting program, and we put money into a wetland fund every year. City of Pewaukee helping with setbacks and floodplains and that kind of thing. Village of Pewaukee helps on the lake. We're doing a lot of work with the village to improve the harvesting operations down there and just keep doing more and more and better things. Again, Pewaukee River Partnership, Pewaukee Women's Club, Pewaukee Kiwanis, Pewaukee Water Ski Club. Even though I was kind of ripping on the Water Ski Club, we worked with them. They've donated money to us. We support it. We work together to try to do good projects to help keep the lake healthy. And then Walleyes for Tomorrow is another group we work with. There's a trailer where we take out to sites where we do all the restoration, buckthorn removal, phragmites removal, stream bank stabilization. We do rowboat trips with the 6th grade class. We take them down the river, show them what the river's about, have them pick up garbage, have them look at the sediment that is in from traffic or erosion from problematic areas. Trying to educate the youth in 6th grade goes a long way because they never forget the boat trips, and that sticks in their heads.
And then it's gonna be their lake to take care of in 20 years.
You want to finish up with this?
Yeah, so to sum it up, we can talk about this for hours, but why is it so important? Why do we care about it? And actually, the gentleman at my table say the same thing. Well, the quality of the lake directly impacts the local economy and the economy around. No one wants to be on an algae-filled, weed-heavy, over-polluted lake. cleaner the lake is, the cleaner the water is, the more people want to use it, the more people that come to the community, the more the home values are. I know I compare it, we have a lot of lakes in Lake Country. The clearer and cleaner the lake is, the bigger and more expensive the houses are. And that's just a direct, physical relationship or thing you can take a deduction off of, that it is directly related to value, intrinsic and monetary value. So the health of the lake and the fisheries health, recreation, it all ties back down to water quality. So our lakes, rivers, and streams are the epicenter of many communities, and they're our most precious resources. It's why the biggest cities, one of the reasons why the biggest cities and communities are on water bodies. And some quotes that we like is, water is the driving force of all nature, and a lake's landscape's most beautiful and expressive feature, or a lake and its landscape is the most beautiful and expressive feature. It is Earth's eye, looking into which the beholder measures the depth of his own nature. That's a little philosophical, but it hits at home. So
The picture there is actually the Lake Country Clean Waters Festival that we have down at the beach. That's in the village of Pewaukee. It's, the band and the refreshments and the good food and all those kind of things. But the other thing is, this is an education tent. And Lake Pewaukee Sanitary District goes down there every year, and we take all the samples of the good plants and the bad plants, the invasives. I get in hip waders and chest waders and try and catch turtles and frogs and all the good stuff that lives in the lakes and streams. And I have them down there for the kids to torture for the day, but then I do put them back where I got them. So it's a great event. Again, the kids are involved, and then the parents are there for you to explain some of this stuff too. So it's a great event, and really brings a lot of people together to understand all the aspects of the lake that we just talked about. We'll be here all day, so if anybody's got any questions, I don't know how we are on time. Good. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate your discussion and everything you're doing, and to your point that I'm hearing about what happens to stuff that goes downstream. It goes downstream into Illinois, and where it ends up at is at the mouth of the Fox River at the Illinois River. Right there, the Illinois River is also fed stuff from Indiana on the Kankakee, stuff from DePage and the Chicago area. It all kicks right there. They have a lot of flooding down there, a lot of sedimentation down there. They have a lot of outbreaks of that killer algae. Senator down there is really worried about that question. So my question to you is, what are the homeowners doing on Lake Pewaukee? Are they reducing the use of fertilizer? Are they putting in buffers along the shoreline? Are they stabilizing the shoreline? And is the community doing those kinds of things to keep the stuff out?
Super good question. I'm assuming everybody heard that. He's talking about the algae and everything that comes downstream and comes all the way down to Fox and gets down to Illinois. I know a lot about it, working hard to work with them. I tried doing the Healthy Lakes program and trying to get it out to people to do this restoration on the shoreline. I think I got 5 the first year, and 3 of them were my brother's house, my house, and my mom's house. And we planted all native plants and did a good job. We try to promote it. We want more people to do it. Kind of one of the hurdles I hit with the Healthy Lakes was a lot of people have a 50-foot frontage, and the DNR wanted a certain size area that you had to do. And some of these 50-foot lots just have a ditch on both sides. So what I was hoping to suggest was, we'll just do a small rain garden on each side. And that's some of the feedback I gave to the DNR regarding the program. If you could do smaller stuff, something's better than nothing. So that is huge. One of the things we didn't talk much about is we got a $10,000 YSI monitoring system. We've always done it and had a different YSI, but we take the health, dissolved oxygen, the salinity. We've even got phosphorus now, or total solids.
Suspended solids and pH and conductivity. I don't know if you hit that, but dissolved oxygen. Basically, all the big standard measurements you want to take a general lake profile to monitor it. So
we're doing that testing. Some of those slides that showed Safety Disc, And we really didn't have a slide that showed all those testings that we do, but we've been doing it for years and we do it in a small lake, we do it in a big lake, and we monitor that stuff. And really the bad algae, I'll say the blue-green algae is the one that, you know, gets the swimmers and it gets us nervous. I watch it really hard. I've talked to the village because one of the spots is we have a beach down there. And one of the main items that starts it is the darn geese shitting on the beach and cleaning that up and getting it out of there sooner than later, because that usually starts the nutrients, and then removing the weeds that are floaters that are on the beach, because that can start biologically changing and bringing on the blue-green algae. So we're on it. We are getting the word out. And I have a newsletter that goes out. One of the odd things about Lake Pewaukee Sanitary District is we do it it's on the tax of the town of Delafield, but then we do weed harvesting as a contract for the city of Pewaukee, and then villages their own operation. And one of the little hurdles I want to work on is we send a newsletter out, but it only goes to our constituents in the town of Delafield, and I'm not, city of Pewaukee puts it on their website. I'm not sure everybody goes to a website to look at stuff nowadays. So we're talking about actually in the truck on the way down. I said, you know what? We gotta see if we can get some DNR funding and a grant maybe for the knowledge of, and then everybody on the lake gets a booklet, welcome to our lake, even though they've been there for 20 years. It put everything in there with the fertilizer, the rain gardens, water quality, wave action, erosion, and just have a nice booklet. It'll cost some money because we'd have to do 800 and some, but great comment, and it's on my mind all the time. Anybody else question?
I'm not an environmental professional. I'm a citizen, retired nurse. So what got me interested in all this is I live in St. Charles, Illinois, and the whole topic of our dam removal. I live in part of the river that people do water ski. And they get out of their boat and they stand there partying in waist deep water. And by the end of July, our water is so gross, you can't paddle it because of all the sediment. I don't know what kind of plants they are. But listening to you guys, I really appreciate the facts, and you did say there's a whole political, what you can say. I've asked our officials, I've asked a lot of professionals in this around